comments?
Yeah, I've got a question. Matt, would you find it unreasonable if kayakers and paddle boaters, they would call in to the barn and let us know that they are on the lake, and then when they're about ready to get off the lake, call and say, we're off the lake now?
I don't see a problem with that at all. I don't see a problem with that. But again, I think that would really negate the issue of saying, hey, what about those folks that are on the trail or at the dog park or somewhere they're using the facility?
Right.
You know, I would hate to put that out there and say, you still have to do that. But I understand if it's about knowing who's on the lake. The State Department really doesn't know who's on No Lynn, Green, or Barron when there's a storm. There's a certain reasonable amount of personal responsibility one has to take. And as a council, you know, as a governing body, we're in charge of basically the public trust doctrine. And that public trust doctrine has been held up in courts all across the country. And it deals with equitable, accessible rights. So to that end, I would say that's an idea and it's workable, but I don't know if even that is necessary.
You made a great logical argument for your stance, and I appreciate it.
You know, Mayor, I would say also that, I mean, I don't have any problem with, I like Matt's presentation. I think you have to apply some common sense to it, which I think is what he's done along with this research. The only problem I have is this council, and I think that you've got more support here than maybe you realize, but we were advised from a legal standpoint that we had to know who was on that lake. And that's what I remember from that meeting. And that's kind of what drove our decision, or what drove my decision.
So, did you want to address Mr. Hess?
Let me, and Matt, you make an excellent presentation. And because of your phone calls, I think probably to all of us, you ask us to kind of discuss this, which we have done. It has been discussed with the acting city attorney and with Charlie, and I think you've met with them. And Matt, just to say bottom line, yeah, and we've all talked. Bottom line, I think that we are prepared to make the changes that you have requested. And we are all in full agreement. Again, and the attorney has advised us in some of the matters that we were not aware of regarding safety and things like that. So bottom line is, again, we are in agreement. We have talked about that, and we can't take action today, you know that, but we are willing to accept the recommendations that you have made, and we will take formal action on that when we can do so at a regular meeting.
I think so too.
When would that regular meeting?
Yeah, and Matt was gonna. Yeah.
Probably.
Well, to kind of separate Mr. Deneen's presentation up, I would say I think the answer to the issue of fees is a pretty easy one. I mean, I don't think we need to charge a fee out there at the lake from a legal standpoint because of the wording of various statutes, including the recreational use statute. So I think that one's pretty easy. You know, in terms of what the council wants to do on the exactly how to word any new policy on access. I mean, we want to, if you all are in agreement with generally what he's proposed, I certainly won't stand in the way of it, but you know, we just want to make sure we're careful about how that's worded in terms of, I actually like Mr. Deneen's, it sounds to me like you're wanting to limit this to handheld or non-trailered boats.
Non-trailered boats, that's right.
Okay.
Kayaks, canoes, paddle boards, those that do not require a trailer.
And just for the information of the council, and I'm not meaning to question you
I
here,
want you
but you talked about publicly accessible points.
Yes.
Can you identify which ones you're talking about? The paddlers
Anything
being
that's
able to
accessible
access?
to the public through the trail system.
Okay.
That could mean the entire lake. If I pull into the lake in my car by any road, I should be able to park my vehicle in the park and carry my kayak down to the shore and go paddle for the afternoon. I want our community to be able to have a relaxing and enjoyable recreation without having the stress of being
Same place you
stopped
would
by
park if you were going to go take a hike.
anywhere. That's true. Anywhere you would park to utilize
For me,
the park.
Matt, is just the dam. I wouldn't, that's not a safely.
Right, and I
common
thought that,
sense.
and I agree with you. I thought that might be a difficult place to launch from because the water's a bit deeper there. Growing up,
I'm
and
thinking going down
Down.
the slope.
Right, I agree. Riding a kayak down that would be fun, but there's a lot of rocks at the bottom and I wouldn't recommend it. There's
Yeah,
not
that's
very
what I say,
smart.
That's
There's,
not a good area to say.
well, there's about 20 or 30 feet of gravel at the bottom there that would prevent a kayaker from attempting that at any point in time, even on an icy day. I would not recommend that. That would be insane. But luckily, the cops that stopped my daughters and I actually grew up on the lake and launched boats from the lake, from the opposite side. And luckily, those police officers were kind enough to say, you need to get off the lake and follow the policy, but we understand we're not going to give you a trespassing citation this time. And I appreciated that. So there was some common sense used there.
And I would suggest once we do come up with what the changes that, the attorney will ask you to take a look at.
And I would be
those.
glad to meet
Yeah.
with you individually and
Sure.
share with you any of the court cases that I can cite and some of the policies that were written by some of the state Supreme Courts that support the public access rights and might help us craft a policy to better suit our community as well.
And we'd be willing to do that.
And I would be happy to. Any other questions? My only question is when's the next meeting?
Monday.
That
Monday.
Monday night.
Monday night.
Monday.
Monday night. But whether or not the staff can prepare everything by that amount of time, that's just whatever your all schedule is. I mean, we're ready.
Okay,
Yeah.
I would just like to know when. I would like a notification of when that would be, so I'll be glad to be here.
Certainly you'll be notified.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Good job, Matt.
Sandy Rogers, Navajo Drive fence. Sandy Roger and party.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, these are neighbors from Navajo Drive. They're on the committee that we have formed to resolve our 40-year-old problem. I hope I'm as eloquent as Mr. Deneen. I'm certainly as passionate. I've lived on Navajo Drive for 43 years, raised 2 children, was married, married again and lost a husband there, actually. So it's my home. I've got a lot of passion for the street, love the neighborhood. It was one of the first larger subdivisions made in Elizabethtown. It's easily accessible from Mulberry Street. Probably everybody here knows where Indian Hills is. So the issue is there is a very old, it's a 40-year-old fence that is across the street behind the commercial property. It's been there for 40 years. It is falling down. It is covered in poison ivy. And it's really very depressing and very awful to look at every day. We can see dumpsters now that have gotten taller than the fence. They overflow. And the neighbors have consistently mowed the property across the street. We've been doing that for 40 years. And I believe, and excuse me, let me introduce, this is Dave and Rita Hartley and Adrian Griggs. And they have maybe some remarks to make as well. But we've all taken care of the property across that's on city easement for 40 years. And we kind of did some math with the lawn care person. And we've actually got about at least $72,000, $75,000 in labor if the city had to pay for it, maybe not at that rate. But anyway, we want to be good neighbors. We love Elizabethtown. I am a very passionate resident of Elizabethtown, but it's just really time to get this situation resolved. So if you look at your paperwork, you have the 1974 original agreement. And on the agreement, it says that the fence is on city property. And somewhere along the line, it has been acknowledged or known that this property is not, the fence is not on the city property, it is on the commercial property. Therefore, the commercial owners have been given great power, it seems, in avoiding the issue and not even signing off on it when a covenant was made with the residents of Navajo Drive and the city, which I believe a covenant is a promise that can't be broken, in '08 to do the fence. So we understand the city. I mean, we really appreciate you all offering to build this fence. It seems like for the commercial people, but there's a big gray area as to who really owns the land. That being said, if I don't know where the proof comes from that it's owned by commercial, but that being said, we're just ready to have the fence done anyhow, anyway. I think Adrian's got some newspaper clippings. Come on up here, Adrian, show them. Well, we only have one copy. Okay. And this is what the fence looks like, what we look at every day. I want to pass those down. And David, have you had a conversation about this? You all have been there for 20-something years, correct?
Been there right at 20 years, and we've had several conversations. I know with Charlie Bryant and several people, but I wrote an email to, actually got on a website and just wrote a quick email saying what's going on with this. And Kelly Campbell responded back, still working on an agreement with the owners of the commercial center to allow replacement of the fence, which is owned by those commercial properties. That doesn't seem right to the agreement. It appears it's on city property, but she said the city still intends to install the fence. And I appreciated her response and wrote back accordingly. And also asked that the city tried to do a better job of maintaining the trees. We cut the grass underneath those trees for 2 years after the ice storm. And no matter who's doing it, whether my wife, myself, or any of our neighbors, we're walking under Widowmakers the whole time. But we still maintain that property. We just ask the city to do so in kind and see if you can't go ahead and process this thing. We had a contractor come out over 2 years ago. We got all excited because he was showing us plans for the fence, and we picked out colors and everything else. We thought this thing was a go. And we've also heard that there's not room to put up a fence on the front side being facing our property because of the trees. And I don't see that being the case, but we would rather have the fence than the bottom limbs on a tree, because the fence is totally devaluating our property. One other thing I would ask the city council to consider, 9 out of 10 neighbors down Navajo do a very good job at maintaining their property. I've sprayed from one end of the street to the other just to kill the poison ivy. But if someone moves in that's renting, maybe they don't understand the process, that if the city makes a pass through the neighborhood and notices that someone is not maintaining that property, to send them a letter and say, please maintain your property. I want my property to keep its value.
You're talking about their own property, not the property across the street.
Property across the street.
Kind of voluntarily.
I think when I moved in, I was told by the realtor that it was my responsibility to cut the grass across the street. So I've done so ever since. I would do so if the city didn't do it.
I see.
And I think if that's not the case, maybe that agreement needs to be made with the residents that we maintain at least mowing the grass across the street. We're not able to maintain the trees. And some of the trees really need some serious stuff done to them, because the one right in front of our house it's all but dead. It's going to wind up in the street. So, thank you.
David, just a quick question. Do y'all have a neighborhood association out there?
Not, it's
for-
kind of retired.
Okay.
And we'd really like to get it going again. it's a beautiful neighborhood. It's in the heart of town, within walking distance to the high school, and we all love it dearly, but we just hate to see it degrading and going down. This fence really sets the tone for the whole neighborhood. Like for Adrian to tell you a little thing that happened to her when they just bought the house next door to me about property values.
Oh, we just moved here from Illinois. So about a year ago, when we started our house search, we saw a piece of property online on Navajo and thought it looked great and the inside looked great. And we came and saw it and I said, oh my gosh, who would build a house right across from a strip mall? You look out the front door and you see dumpster, bull. So we didn't even look at it. So I'd personally like to thank Dr. Henry Bunch, whose home we did buy on Navajo, which is so incredibly awesome on the inside and the backyard that we can, forget the fact that when I look out the front door, I see Young Ray's laundromat and hear their conversations with not so nice language and fence that's falling down. Yeah, big trucks and dumpster noise. So just one other thing, the house that we looked at online sold for $219. It just recently sold for $174,500. Now I know it's a depressed market, but things are on an upswing. And the house next to that just sold for $145,000. So I'm not gonna tell you what we paid for our house, but I feel like as a buyer, and that's what I was, the condition of the fence colors what's a really great neighborhood. So I just thought I would speak to that as a new Elizabethtown resident.
Can I share some good news with you?
Yes.
Despite looking at the dumpsters and stuff,
Yeah.
they came last time they came, they were having sex back there behind it. So we've cleaned some of that up. That's the good news.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's what we was.
that's what we were told.
I first got elected in 1999. I started serving in January of 99, and we were discussing that fence then. And I've thought all along it was between the owners agreeing on what they wanted and the owners of the shopping center not. I mean, we've gone back and forth all these years.
We had a gentleman that came and said he was speaking for the neighborhood association.
Yes,
He's
yes,
moved
that's
on.
why I asked.
Right.
And this is all that was wanted, and we ended up doing that, and now he's gone. And apparently he did not
Yes.
talk with the rest of
With the
them.
rest
He
of the-
did. I actually helped him gather 200 names on a petition. And then when the meeting came that day, everybody was so upset because the city or someone had cut the trees down on the other end, and everybody was feeling guilty. So a 10-foot wooden fence was offered just on that one little section that only faces about two houses. And the rest of us in the whole neighborhood felt like we've been thrown under the bus. But we've tried to, we appreciate your all's work and we know you all want to do the right thing, but it's been tough. I actually cried when Charlie or someone sent trimmers out the first of this early in the summer to trim some of the limbs. And I thought, oh my goodness, it's going to happen. But there was some of the dead ones were removed. But Charlie can maybe give you some more insight. I've been working with him also for many years. I never want to bother you all, but then in a way it's like, it's really time, guys.
Well, it's been quite a struggle, obviously, to try to get all the right property owners lined up and get agreements. There may be some misunderstanding here about as far as the location of the new fence. And this conversation that I had with you at least one time about moving the fence from the location of the existing one towards Navajo Drive. And of course, there's not much room to do that between the existing fence and where the trees are. Now, if you were in agreement, which was my understanding at the time, that you did not want the fence placed in front of the trees. Now, we could place the fence in front of the trees, then you're correct. We get rid of any question. There may be the ability to move it between where the existing fence is and the trees, but a number of the trees will be, have to trim, limbs will have to be cut off. And there's a couple of them that maybe the trees just have to be taken down or we have to wiggle the fence around them. But, if the choice of the neighborhood is just moving the fence off of the existing location and putting it between where that is and where the trees are, I'm not saying that's impossible, but that is a difficult proposition. But in order to move it out in front of the trees, that's fairly easy and we could move that along.
No, we don't have
I'll say one other thing too about, the 74 document that you pointed out.
Right.
The existing fence, it says, it gave the commercial subdivision developers the opportunity that they may put the fence on city property. It didn't say that they shall. And to be honest with you, not been my understanding that the fence is on their property. And the only way we're gonna know for sure is to have a survey done to actually locate the fence. So I don't have the answer for that. But as far as putting the fence on city property and getting it in a location where it can go, if we can agree to that, we can move it as soon as we can get the materials ordered.
Well, all of the neighbors really wouldn't want the fence put in front of the trees because the existing fence would still be back there. And then in the middle, you'd have weeds and snakes.
That's my understanding,
Right.
that you did not want it in. front
No,
of the
sir.
trees.
I don't, no, sir.
That's gonna take away part of that right of way too, which it almost appears to be our property. We know it's not.
We feel like it is because we've taken care of it. I mean, we want it to look like a park and be beautiful, and we can't do anything until we get a new fence. So-
I've looked at it several times and said that it can be moved, and if we're not going back in the existing location, what we need to do is have a survey or check to see where the fence actually is and where the property line actually is, so we can move it off of the property line onto the property that's part of the buffer area that the city owns, and then we can proceed. But we're going to affect some trees in doing that.
Would the city agree to cut the trees down that are there? I'm just asking a question, not that we're in agreement with this, and plant new trees in front of a new fence?
Well, that's something that the council would have to direct us to do.
The trees that are there are getting in very, very bad condition.
Some of them
An
are.
ice storm, another ice storm like we had in '09, the city's gonna have a major cleanup effort anyway. So it's just a thought.
And I have just a quick question. It seems like a holdup has been the commercial owners or their property manager not signing off on letting the city put a $18,000 fence up. So it just kind of concerns me that they have that kind of power, because I would think that it's there's all kinds of documents and ordinances that a fence is required between commercial and residential. That's just an ordinance, and it has to be a certain height and so forth. This one is 40 years old. Were those ordinances in effect back then? No, but
There's actually an agreement between the city
Right.
and the
And the property owner.
commercial property
Right.
owners at the time that they would agree to put the fence up.
right. What about eminent domain? Is there any way the city could just go in and say, this fence is, whoever it is reclaim it, and we're going to take it down, and we're going to put the new fence up?
You can always do
problem
that,
would
but that's
still be
last
the
resort. We'd
property
rather do
lines
that
that
last
we-
resort and try
Right.
to work with everybody.
Right. Okay.
We do understand the last resort. We understand the need for survey, but as she's already mentioned,
resort.
this is this problem's older than my 20 years being there. The fence just continues to degrade, and we keep bringing this issue up and nothing gets done about it. We'd just like to see something move forward.
Right. And moving forward, what would be the quickest solution in your mind, Charlie?
And the quickest would be to put the fence up in
trees.
front of the trees. You don't want to do
Mm.
that. The second probably would be to either get a survey done and to try to put it underneath the trees as they exist. And the third solution would be to take the trees down, remove those, put the fence in whatever location there that we can make it work. You'd probably have to not only take the trees down, but take stumps out also. So it's going to be the cost for all that, which, I don't know, what do you think we have there? 15 trees?
Yeah, 15 or so. And as I stated earlier, those trees in another 10 years, probably all going to have to be disposed of anyway.
Yeah, there are several of them that are in pretty poor
And maybe you
shape.
said, but why do you not want the fence in front of the trees?
Well, because now you got a fence, trees in between. The tree comes down, the fence goes away because the tree just tore the fence down. And you've got a non-maintained area that's gonna grow up.
Look bad.
The, weeds,
Snakes.
vines, animals, whatnot, between the two fences.
Really not very safe, because, I mean, somebody could come through there and be feeling happy or something and fall in between, and you wouldn't even know they were there.
That you said were at the drive.
Yeah, they might come over and fall in between.
Yeah.
Indian Hill.
So
Well-
maybe that'd be a better buffer with the, especially when you've got a subdivision there and looking at a strip center, you know, I would think the better buffer you have there, the better it would be.
Except what's going to happen to that land in between? How's that going to be maintained? There'll be what, maybe 2 or 3 feet? We can't get,
You all are maintaining it now.
yeah, but then we'd have
We're
to jump
maintaining
over
the
that
big
fence and get in the back.
Fences.
We just think that that would, we have one more other suggestion that we think would make it happen
Okay.
fast. And everybody on the street is in agreement. They'll sign off, is to take the new fence and put it flat up against the old fence. No spaces, just have one bumped right up against the other. And then if the old fence falls down, the commercial people,
Falls on their side.
that's right.
And you're saying leave the old fence,
Yes.
if that were the,
Just butt them up. to where
Since
there's
they
no
won't
space
sign
between
off
them.
on it, just butt it right up against it. And if we have to lose some limbs or whatever, at least we'll have a decent fence to look at, and it'll be resolved.
And you guys would rather have I suppose you're talking about a privacy fence?
Yes, sir. It was,
6 foot tall, 8 foot tall?
we'd like 7, yes, 7. It was going to be chain link with slats running this way.
You all would rather have that than a natural screen of pine trees, evergreens, things like that? You would rather have the fence instead of a natural barrier between the two?
Yes, sir, because there's a lot of foot traffic through there, folks walking from Metz Court and places to work in restaurants. There's a lot of foot traffic, and there's a lot of traffic out in the back there by the laundromat. I think we would feel safer if there was a fence as far as security. And would maybe cut down on some of the noise too. But yeah, if we could get the fence just put in front of the other one, that would be wonderful. If we could do 7 feet, chain link with slats, vertical slats, we would be very happy, right?
I thought some of that fence was a wood fence.
Oh, that's,
The other end.
Way up at the top.
What the previous council agreed back in, I think it was 2008 now.
Yes.
We've been trying to get all this permission worked out for 6 years now, was that the city would pay for a 6-foot chain link fence with the privacy slats.
And I guess that commercial property has changed hands since then.
No,
I don't think so, no.
is there a reason why they don't have to cooperate? I'm just saying. I mean, is it,
The original agreement required them to maintain the fence, so, but it's still just a 4-foot fence. So if you want a taller fence,
Right.
then they don't have any obligation to do that.
okay, but they never have maintained it, so I'm just saying. Well, we would really appreciate if we could just get the one, maybe another foot taller, put right up against the old fence. Everybody has signed off on it on the street, and we will continue taking care of the grass, and we'll be able to make it a lot prettier.
I remember, I was telling Ron, I remember this going on way back when Bob Short was living.
Yes.
for some reason.
It's been
Mayor
at least
Tim
6
was
years.
very active. He was about to get some movement, but we
We're
lost
still
him.
gonna need to get a survey because we're gonna need to know whether or not even putting it up against the existing fence, whether or not that's on whose property that would be upon.
Because even if we did that, we're not going to be able to put it right up against that
Right.
fence.
But
So
it's-
there's still going to be probably, even if it's 3 or 4 inches,
That would be fine.
but it's going to be growing up as the same as if it's a foot. There's
Well,
still
we
going
can
to be,
use-
there's
we can-
still going to be something.
We
that's
use
gonna-
herbicides.
We could do.
Right.
Run side bottom.
Right. That would be doable.
And Sandy and Dave, again, we thought, some time ago that we were dealing with the homeowners association from a legal standpoint.
I know.
Can we assume now that when Charlie or Matt makes the contact, that you or David or both are speaking for the neighborhood?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we appreciate the work, you guys. I know this is just a little pea in your big bowl of things to do, but we really appreciate your help, and we love our neighborhood, and we just want it to be nicer and safer. Let's talk about the gate real quick, so that won't come up. There is a gate there. We'd rather it just be a pass-through. The gate stays open. There is a big drop-off back there, and
Move the fence onto the other property, onto the city property, maybe we don't have to have
a
one.
gate.
right, right,
Yeah.
right.
I say, if you're worried about that traffic coming through, I wouldn't put a gate.
Yeah.
Right, we'd rather not have it, but there was something commercial people were worried about as far as fire hydrants or something. So,
That concern, they can put the fence up right.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they might want to leave a pass-through
Right.
where the two would connect.
Right. Right, right. So do y'all think we're getting closer?
Hopefully, you don't have to come back in 14 years.
I have to come in my
When
wheelchair.
can we possibly get some kind of answer as to what's gonna happen?
Well, if we are all in agreement that we're gonna try to move the fence to a point that we can get it put in on the property, then the thing we need to do is get the survey done.
Get the survey.
That would be the next step. As soon as we get that, then you'll be able to see where the line is marked.
Yes, it's that question again, who, what, when? I'm not trying to be impatient, but I mean, impatience kind of worn out over the years, but, when can we get some kind of resolution and know what's gonna happen? And
Can we set this goal by the end of November?
Survey.
Survey.
It's according to the survey crew. I mean,
Yeah.
you're trying to make a promise on somebody else's work, which is gonna be hard.
And what if you do the survey and it's on the other people's property? Then what are you gonna do?
You have
Yeah.
to move it to a point where it's not on the property.
They don't want it in front of the trees.
That's what I mean, though, you start
So,
saying it's
you
up
know, if
against.
you're gonna
it,
set a
it'd be very
deadline,
much-
I think you've still got a hurdle or two to jump before.
The thing that might happen is that depending on where the line is, you might have to move it so far that you would have to take the trees down.
That's what I'm
I
thinking.
believe.
what I was
think
thinking,
so.
too.
They're
That's-
gonna
But you're not gonna know any of that till you get.
Until you get
the
survey.
And as a backup in our mind, I mean, is there anything that could be done for the commercial property folks to step up and do what is right?
Can we
mean-
not enforce that through code enforcement? You can't enforce agreements through code enforcement?
Is there not an ordinance on the books that requires a fence as a buffer between commercial and residential? Right.
this was done prior to that by private agreement. It wasn't done based on the city code.
So when the laws change,
There's a
if
grandfather.
you're above the law, if you were before it came in.
Not everything is, a lot of things are
Right.
grandfathered in.
Right, okay.
So you can still have an eyesore and nobody's gonna do anything about it?
Well, I mean, the code enforcement board would address anything that is a danger or a health hazard, correct?
This is. Well,
Right.
this is-
Yeah.
this is
Nuisance.
Really a
Or
health
a
hazard.
nuisance.
I mean, I get sick every time I look at it, so I consider it a health hazard. I mean,
Understand.
I mean, if you've lived in that neighborhood, not to be ugly or anything, I'm sure it would be done by now. I mean, there is no reason in this world that those people, if they're not gonna fix that fence, why would they worry about if somebody else is gonna go in and fix it? I can't understand that. There's no reason, there's no reason whatsoever that they can't understand that fence looks horrible.
It's
Common sense doesn't always
dangerous.
prevail.
And I had mowing. I've got poison ivy from mowing. Went to the doctor, spent a lot of money, but that's beside the point. I have seen all kinds of savory looking people. I saw a guy in one of those, a long full coat it was 90 degrees outside. He was over there walking around like it was 0. And he just looked like, not to judge anybody, but he didn't look like he was really all upstairs. But there's just all kinds of stuff that you see in that. And it's sad that, we can't get anything done about it.
Charlie, let me ask you, since still doing a survey, could we not go to the property owners and say, listen, you're not going to do anything about this. We've got agreement. You're not going to do anything. We want permission for you to allow the city to go in and install a fence back through there.
Basically done that.
Done that.
Did they sign off on it?
No.
Well, what is the issue with
did.
them not signing off?
They
That-
just don't feel like they have to by law. It's just though, saying, if I can get around it, I will.
I don't understand why someone wouldn't appreciate that.
Having a
the
fence.
commercial property owner wouldn't appreciate a new fence.
Makes their property look better even from the back.
That's what Tim was.
Yeah, Tim was on it, wasn't he?
Well,
But
Tim
that-
is the one that,
But that's why they didn't agree with that, so.
Okay, I have another question. If I quit mowing that strip over there, am I gonna get fined for not mowing that strip over there?
no.
No.
Well, all right then. That means that the city's gonna have to come out and get somebody to mow that strip every time that the grass gets, because believe it or not, when it gets so high, I'm gonna call.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
That's what
I'm gonna
you
call
do.
because I'm not gonna look out in grass that's taller than I am. I'm not gonna do that because I'm not a mean person. I have called on a neighbor before because their grass was up almost to my waist. There's no reason for that. I mean, they're a lot younger than I am and probably a lot healthier, so there's no reason letting your grass grow up past your waist. So, I mean, I don't mean to be ugly, but if something don't get done with that fence, somebody's gonna have to come out there and mow it. because
The fence
come on.
does, the fence does set the tone for the whole street, and the whole street sets the tone for Indian Hills, and Indian Hills sets the tone for Elizabethtown.
Are we all in agreement though, that based on what we said, that the first step the survey should answer a lot of these questions that we're still, and I think we can facilitate that
Yeah.
as soon as we can get that done.
Let's move on this because, we talked about this a year ago and I was out there walking the neighborhood 3 nights ago.
How are you?
Yes, beautiful homes.
Thank
And then you turn to the right, you see the back of that. I would be very angry.
Thank you.
I would, so.
It's rough.
And,
We can't do anything until we do the
and
survey.
I would prefer to do the survey and put
If they're not giving us
the
permission.
fence on our property instead of putting the fence on their property, because they're not even responding to a free fence. So I don't think I'd be comfortable putting our fence on their property.
Charlie, when was the
Well, we
last
Just
time,
put it on our
We
property.
can't.
when was the last time
Okay.
somebody talked to them about it?
Talked,
Owners of the shop?
about 2 weeks ago.
About 2 weeks ago? And the question was asked about putting another fence up and they said no.
No, we didn't talk about that. We talked about getting the agreement that has been worked out. As I said, we've been through a long process on this, had agreements prepared. They've already signed them once.
Once.
Part of the property owners out there have signed, but some of them would not. And then they decided that they were actually leasing the property, so another person was gonna have to sign. So when we went through that, trying to get that set up, then that required them to change their agreements. We drafted that, gotten it back to them, so we've been around and around to try to get approval to get on that property to replace the fence, even at no cost to them.
See, there's property owners and then there's other people leasing property for the shopping center. So you're working with all of them and then all the people in the subdivision.
And the reason we got stuck on this line was trying to replace the fence rather than moving it. Because for one thing, for sure, they didn't want to move it in front of the trees, and to try to get it in behind the trees, we're gonna have to go through and cut out limbs, and
It's another option.
it's gonna be a
Hey,
project.
Possibly one other option.
Yeah, and I'll talk to them.
What street?
Mini bike, I was on Pawnee.
Oh,
Navajo was one of my favorites because there were lots of good jumps.
yes. That's where my son broke
We don't want to
his
keep
wrist.
pushing this thing
Yeah,
forward and
we
as
have
far
one
as taking
other-
up any more
We
time, but
appreciate you all. Thank you.
as
another
far as
idea.
putting the fence in front of the trees that are there, I would hate to see that done simply because how do you deal with the tree that needs to come down? So I'm not opposed to it being in front of where the trees are now, if those trees come down. I hate to see the trees go away as another potential buffer, so I would want more trees planted. Sure.
And then the old fence just taken down. Surely they will take the old fence
No,
down.
I bet you they don't
I
think so,
wouldn't
because
count
don't
on
think
They
it,
wouldn't have
Sandy.
to.
They
No.
wouldn't have to.
Well,
It's not the best option, but, and I don't know if Sandy would even agree, but to have a nice fence up there, even if the old one has to stay, it's not by any means the best choice option.
At least
but-
the problem is behind the
Right.
fence.
Right,
not
exactly.
and if the area in between could be maintained.
Well, put some,
I mean, I've probably spent $300, $400 in herbicide myself, just keeping junk off the fence.
Well, I mean, you all talking about how quick can we get something done? From what
Yes.
I understand, if you all were agreeable to it going in front of the trees, it could probably be done pretty
Be
quick,
done
couldn't it?
pretty quick.
Except the trees gotta come down.
Well,
How you gonna deal with it? How you gonna get between those two fences? If you put one right in front of a tree, how you gonna get in there with equipment or anything to deal with the tree that needs to come down?
well, the way they normally do it, whenever you got one next to a house, they do it in sections, so that way it doesn't fall on the tree. I mean, those guys, I've seen them do it before. They can do it without touching anything. But to answer your question, you all have been waiting for a long, long time, and I understand that. Ever since I've been on the council,
Yeah.
it's been going on. But I think the quickest way to get it done, and if I lived over there, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because I've seen it, I'd put that fence up right in front of those trees, and you've got a buffer, that way you don't see the other fence, and, you know, they can worry about the rest of it there, and that way it can be done quickly.
Who would be responsible for taking care of the 4 or 5 feet? in
Who owns
between?
that?
Whoever.
The city.
Well, we've
most
got
part, city.
9 million mowers.
I think
At least.
the survey's gotta be done first, it's obvious.
Right.
That's
And then because we don't know
That
what the
would be
options
agreeable.
are.
exactly.
If that could be maintained in between, that's agreeable.
I mean, that's the quickest I see.
Well, we don't have to do the survey if we put the fence in front of the tree,
No.
right?
No.
Okay. So that would be, yeah, that's the
That's the
quickest. route.
quickest.
okay, if a limb falls on the new fence, who's gonna fix the new fence?
We do.
We own it.
Because it's
We
your,
own
your
trees.
fence,
Okay.
your land,
That's
your
what I wanna
trees.
You all need to discuss this with the rest of the homeowners, but
Right.
what everybody's saying is, we don't mind doing the survey to find out where we can put the fence and still keep it behind the trees. That way you would have trees with a fence behind it.
Right, that's
We don't mind
ideal.
doing that. But unless you're in a hurry, and if you're in a hurry, we'll skip the survey, put the fence where we know we can, which is on your side of the trees. So then you have a fence, the trees, and the old fence.
That's a good idea.
I think I would first.
Terry.
But he said it like this.
Yeah.
I think the survey first, you might find out the
Kenny,
fence is on
you said
city
it's-
property. If you do the survey first, you might find out the fence is actually on city property. Then it's a no-brainer.
Then it's easy.
I can't say whether it is or isn't.
But you won't know till you do a survey, and
Right.
it seems to me like the city would want to know where the property is.
I think,
I don't know the purpose of knowing that, other than try to get a fence out
How
there.
much room are we
We're
talking
not-
about if
we're
we
not
put
gonna
the
sell it,
fence up
so.
right in front of the trees to the other fence? How much room?
Oh, gosh.
Well, you got to.
About 4 feet.
14.
Probably 3
Okay.
feet.
3 feet?
Yeah.
Difference there?
I
Sounds to me
still
like
say
that's
to be safe, the first step would be to do the survey.
But if,
I know there's some disagreement, but if we don't, somewhere down the road, when none of us are here, somebody's gonna come and say 40 years ago, this was, I think survey's gonna answer a lot of questions. And it's not gonna take us that much longer, even if we decide to go with the option that Councilman Lewis presented there.
I don't know, Ron. I think 40 years from now, you'll still be here.
I doubt it. I doubt it. But I do. I think a survey protects everybody.
but you all do need some satisfaction. You've been
Thank
going on
you.
with this forever, as long as I can
Terrible.
remember, so.
We appreciate you.
It's become a passionate thing, but we appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you
we
all.
love living there, and we appreciate this moving forward.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, on College Street Road, no Jake breaks, please. Is that anybody here to
Well, somebody
address that?
explain to the council what
Jake
Jake breaks
break.
are.
Who put this on the agenda?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you
Yeah,
have
they
this
make-
put on the agenda?
No.
No, he said he did.
No, he didn't. He just knew what they were.
Yeah,
So
they're-
nobody
Oh,
wants to
okay.
own up to no Jake breaks?
I know they're,
Huh?
It's Mary's fault, but the complaint.
Mary put it on the
Mary's
agenda.
complaining.
Mary, come on up.
The complaint is from a lady that lives on College Street Road near its intersection 162, who says that the trucks coming down College Street Road, slowing down, to stop at 62 at the light, are using their Jake brake, which is the gearing their truck down to stop rather than just strictly using the brakes, and it makes a very distinctive
Yeah, it
noise, and
does.
so that's their complaint. To do something with that.
We don't need any sound.
Is that what it, is that the kind of sound it makes?
yeah.
How do we
You're trying to
contact
loud
all
noise
the
that
truck
echoes, like,
drivers?
that's the Jake brake,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, but the suggestion is just put up a sign and say, please don't use those.
Oh, wow.
But again, if you're not going to enforce it and we don't have the ability to stand out there and enforce it, why would we do that?
Why would we do it?
Just to ask for their cooperation, that's all you can do anyway.
Why can't we just send a letter to the companies out in that
drivers.
area? Yeah, to do, because I didn't know what it was. And I asked some of the council members, and I think
didn't
you
know.
put a sign up, no Jake breaks,
That'll make national news.
Truck drivers
that you're
will not-
liable to see it on Jimmy
No.
Fallon.
Yeah.
No, I've seen them in other communities.
Have you really?
Have you?
Can't say where they are, but I've seen them.
Well, if you're using your Jake brake, then you know what it is.
And maybe
Okay.
somebody pulled out in front of them.
Yeah, so, so we just need to put this on the agenda next week and either vote yay or nay.
Tell me whether it's okay to put up a sign. We'll put up a
Can
sign.
you get no Jake brake sign?
No, you had to make them.
Could you get somebody to come down through here and hit their Jake brake so we can know?
So we know
it
what it
sounds
is.
like? In the future, we'll know that they're using it.
It's loud.
Big 18-wheeler come down through town, use compression brake or a Jake brake. We're all gonna hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's
All right.
a proper name for it, I can't think what it's called, maybe call it compression brake.
Our tire truck has a Jake brake. And because of the weight of that truck, we need that brake. It's when they let off the gas, the Jake brake automatically kicks in as they're putting on the brake. It's just to assist in stopping.
Stopping a heavy vehicle.
A heavy
Yeah.
vehicle,
And what-
that truck, it has almost
So
has to have.
So if you were in a heavy vehicle and you saw a sign that said no Jake brake, and you thought that that was a local law, you could run the risk of not stopping your truck?
I don't think we can turn our Jake brake off on the ladder truck, but now there are semis that can turn the Jake brake
I
off.
see.
I don't believe we have a switch to turn.
So
it
you
on.
would have a difficult time if we put up signs that you're not to use that.
Yes.
Why don't this week we kind of do a little research and then Monday night talk about it?
Yeah, let's hang it at the truck stops.
There you go.
And you
But
got
no
a
Jake
truck
brakes,
stop.
It's a common sign. It's a common.
I thought it had to do with turkeys or something.
And I mean, and are we just doing this on College Street or is this going to be a citywide?
Well, she requested it on College Street Road, so maybe that's, she lives at that intersection, right?
You said all 62. Yeah.
I guess we find, once we do this, and we'll find out if other people have problems.
We don't need them on Pear Orchard Road.
We can try this sign or a speed hump.
Speed platform.
Speed bumps on Farrell Road Northwest.
We've talked about those too.
Okay, is Jeff going to talk about the billing plan for the water system transfer?
Yeah, I just wanted to say first that the Water District has received their official approval from the Public Service Commission for the transfer. So we'll be having an actual closing of the sale on Friday, and their Water District's plan is to actually take over operations at 4:30 p.m. on Friday.
This Friday.
This Friday. So you all had asked Jeff last week about billing, and he's got a little bit more information on that now.
What we're going to do from our standpoint is we've discussed this with the district, and they're going to start reading first couple of weeks or so of November. And for continuity purposes, what we're going to do is we're going to take their reading as our final reading for the water. So we're not going to read any more as long as it falls into the next reading for what our normal cycle would be. We're going to get their reading, And then, so for example, if your water on our last bill says 20,000 on your meter, that will say the beginning reading of 20,000 on your next meter.
On the next bill.
On the Hardin County bill. On their first bill and our last bill, the meters should hopefully line up perfectly. That's what we're gonna look at. Anybody who does get a minimum bill, we're gonna adjust that. So we wanna make sure that nobody gets a minimum bill today and then they get another final bill from us of $20 as well. So we're going to adjust those. We're going to back those off. We may, I think the longest or the shortest stretch should be maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. But what we'll do is we'll back off that minimum bill, maybe cut it in half and say, okay, if you normally get a minimum bill, your bill will be half. And from there on, it'll just be based on the meter reading. So we want to make sure we eliminate any double billing, duplicate billing issues. Try to minimize as many headaches as possible. We don't want those. The public doesn't want those as well. We just want to make it a smooth transition. I'm not saying that some of the bills may come in a different cycle. We're going to try to keep those as consistent as possible. If you get your bill in the 3rd week now, we're going to try to keep it to the 3rd week. It could be 2nd or 4th. We're going to try to keep it as close as possible that we can.
Just as a clarification, if you're on Elizabethtown Water and switches over, the individual does not have to contact the water district or anything like that. I mean, everything is just going to be handled and switched, and the customer doesn't have to do a thing.
Right. I think last week I said everybody needs to contact them.
Yeah,
but
that's what
I was kind of put on the spot at the time.
Yeah, people
So,
ask me, what do I need to do? But I don't think you do anything, do you?
No, the county or the District 2 has received our information, so they know who the customers are. If you do want to set up like a web or like an automatic payment or something like that, you do need to contact them.
Okay.
Otherwise, you will just start receiving a bill from the district.
Second question
yes.
I've got, is there a $25 per person charge to switch it over?
If you leave your house and that account switches over, then there's a $25 fee to go finalize and get your final reading.
Well, I mean, like now, I've got E-Town Water and it's going to switch over to Hardin County. Is there a $25 fee
No.
to switch it over?
No, and I asked James Jeffries, everybody knows him. I asked him that same question because we did have a couple of people bring in a letter stating there was a $25 transfer service fee.
Yeah.
That does not apply to the general public. It's primarily landlord tenant situations, I believe.
Okay.
So that is not something, no, they're not.
I didn't know.
Right. So one day is going to be E-Town, next day is going to be District 2. There's not a connection fee to go to them. There's not a disconnect fee for us. So hopefully it'll be a seamless transition.
So basically, the average customer that doesn't want, the automatic draft or any of these other things, those calls we've been getting, they don't need to do anything. It's going to be switched automatically and there will be no fee.
Right.
I think that's what the biggest question we've had
Yeah, they will receive a final bill for water from our side,
from the,
and that will be in November sometime. I'm not exactly sure the date, but we'll get it out as soon as we can.
okay.
And then your first bill from the district should be in December.
And everybody though everybody won't receive their bill from you all at the same time, will they?
As a matter of fact, the cycles will probably change.
Okay.
We're going to integrate the 9,800 into the existing.
I got you.
7,200, and
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the
it'll
date.
slightly change.
Change. Okay.
Right,
Okay.
and because our readings are, like our sewer readings will be based on their water readings. We'll get the file from when they do the readings. So, and they're going to read, I think, twice a month. So they'll have 2 cycles where we currently have 3 plus I think a larger one. So we do have to merge their cycle into our cycle, but we also will be reading gas meters. So we're going to line those up. And that's why I'm saying, hopefully everybody will be as close to the same cycle.
As
Right. So when you get your water bill and you get our sewer bill, they should hopefully line up, given there could be a little bit off, but if there is ever a situation where, say you fill up your swimming pool, like we do now, you come in and say, well, I did this, can I take a sewer adjustment? We will do that. That will come from District 2. They'll notify us. Yes, we need to make an adjustment on this because we did the swimming pool.
When's the actual chloramine treatment start?
Our target is the 1st of February.
Okay. Certain situations with kidney dialysis, aquariums, malt beverage making.
That a year ago, what we're doing now is picking up the phone and calling people and keeping them up to date.
Okay.
We have a log of all the medical providers in town and the pet store owners. So those are getting personal phone calls.
Good, good.
And Jay, again, going back, because these are the calls we've had, the people that want to sign up for the draft, the automatic draft, should they call
Yes.
the water district?
We're
Or
not acquiring the banking information for the city's customers, so they will need to set up automatic draft.
Okay.
And there are certain things that we do that they don't, like you cannot pay at the local bank. The other one is budget billing, I believe. So if you're on one of those plans, then you'll have to come out with a different way to pay.
Okay.
We touched on this briefly. This was the flyer that we submitted in our bills. It's actually a District 2 flyer. It has a lot of information on it, plus a sign-up form, authorization form. I believe, did you all have a copy of it in your packet this time?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Everybody that receives a water bill from the city should have got this. A lot of people probably didn't look at it. Be honest, no offense, but we had some actually brought back to us saying, okay, here's my form, you take care of it. And we said, sorry, you got to take this out, deal with it yourself. We can't be responsible for taking their information out. But it does have a lot of information on it, information on rate changes, how to sign up, how to pay, things that we do differently from the district as far as our payment cycle. So hopefully I have a smooth transition. And I'm not gonna lie and say there's not gonna be any hiccups. There probably will be. But we will hope to resolve those as smoothly and as
Hey,
possible.
this may be a dumb question. I want to ask it to a lot of people have said, will I taste any difference in the water? And they've asked me that. My question is, a couple of people that called, they were already on the water, that's where we were getting that portion. But
See, we don't intend to change the operation. We're still gonna run City Springs, and City Springs is still not enough to supply the entire customer base.
Right.
So there's still gonna be some county water mingling with City Springs water. So until February, there's not gonna be any chemical operational changes.
in the water that they're receiving. Okay.
I would suggest though, if anyone is experiencing a taste difference, that they'd use an activated carbon filter. So a lot of your refrigerators have it. You can put it on the faucet. You could do that if that's what you're experiencing. So, yeah.
If you have something that busts this week, just hold off until Friday afternoon before you let us know. So it won't be.
Friday at 4:00, just turn your faucets on.
Yeah.
Let it rip.
If the pipe busts, just stick your thumb in it just for a little bit. Just
There you go.
hold on. So, no, we're looking forward to working with them. So.
You all asked me last week about the number of employees that would be transferring, and I said 4. It's actually three operators. At this point, anyway, unless anything else is going on that we don't know about.
Free agency.
Yeah. Hey, before we go any further, we have a scout. Would you like to stand up and introduce yourself? Tell us what troop you're with. Well, great. And I am sorry you chose this particular meeting. This one has gone on and on and on, and we're still not through, but we're glad to have you. Thank you very much for
Sandy,
coming.
don't Get those.
Okay. Next, the Corps of Engineers jurisdictional waters definition, Robert Bush. This is your chance to get back.
We're gonna learn some definitions.
Yeah.
Guarantee you.
Well, we'll try at least. Mayor, Council, thanks for this opportunity. In response to some of the discussion that we had a meeting or so ago about Corps of Engineers and some of the issues I guess we've had in the past in regard to, the payment of impact fees. I think at the time we're talking about bat habitat and some of the things. Just so happens the US EPA and Corps of Engineers are currently in a proposed rule change. And that rule change is in effect an expansion of their definition of waters of the US. And what that means for you and me is, heretofore, the Corps implemented their regulatory waters. That essentially was, navigable waterways. I mean, that's in essence, of it was typically perennial streams and some intermittent streams that have flow, bed flow at even in dry periods, you'd see water flow in a perennial stream. Intermittent streams are major streams, but they sometimes dry up depending on the weather conditions. So those have been their primary jurisdictional waters. However, in the past, they've extended their definition to include other reaches and have taken a fairly broad and aggressive approach to their interpretation of what their regulatory waters are. This step is kind of a step to really formalize what they've done in the past, and they have been essentially kind of rebuffed in the past by even the Supreme Court, telling them, look, this is you're overreaching, and you guys are out here well beyond the pale of what the regulatory should be and what you should be doing. Their response to that is to go back and try to rewrite the regulatory. And I think that's essentially what we see here. So between now and the 14th of November, there's an opportunity to log comments on this expanded waters of the U.S. definition. And it is an opportunity, I think, to air some of the comments that we heard and have dealt with over the past. And so that's what this resolution is about.
Will you respond, Robert, for the city based on some of the comments that?
Yes, we will. We'll forward the resolution. Obviously, there are, we can respond. Working through the clerk, we'll try to respond officially that this is the city's comments. I've got an address that we can respond to. There's also a House bill, level House Bill 5078, the Waters of the U.S. Regulatory Overreach Protection Act, and that's probably another way that we can respond through our political folks at a higher level, at the federal level. So again, I think this body knows exactly the impacts that this regulatory has had on us, and you wouldn't think that the Corps would be heavy-handed and step in when we're trying to do a project that is primarily, exclusively focused at helping people with flooding and dealing with issues in their own homes, and then someone outside of the community steps in on a regulatory basis and said, and oh, by the way, you owe us $400,000 for the permit, for the impact fees to this ditch that you're trying to reshape, pipe, make an improvement in, or, so, and that's been the status quo. I don't think they've been, I think they treat everybody the same way, whether you're the Department of Transportation. I think there's a similar history there, but this is our chance to at least have some comment.
Yeah, because a couple of weeks ago, we were all upset about the extortion fees, so.
Right?
Bats.
Yeah.
Indiana
That's,
bat.
and that kind of has spawned through the same, it's through that core regulatory process that, the Department of Wildlife, Fish and Wildlife engage, and they're the guys that really stand in the wings waiting for that check that, when we write one, that $400,000 check, that's who it went to, so and again, if you look around our community, I don't think we've ever received, the first dime back from those fees that we paid. It would be different if we had, our nature park project, which is a great restoration project. That would have been a great application for our money to come back to our community, but they have no,
Kind of a one-way.
it is a one-way thing.
Knows what's done with the money.
It's gone, yeah. And there has been a lot of activity, I guess, in the news with some of the folks in Frankfurt in regard to the, administration of these funds. So, but anyway, that said, that's what this is all about.
Thank you, Robert,
Okay.
very much.
Thank
Hold
you all.
back, Tell them what you think.
Mayor,
Okay,
Maryville
we'll
has
do our
agreed to
best.
take our bats for half the price. We've got plenty of trees down there. So next time we need to send the bats, we just send them down there for half the fee.
That would be half the fee.
Half the fee.
That's a pretty good offer. Okay, Ed Pope, downtown.
Tell her song.
You all have,
Only you and I are old enough to know that.
in front of you all, information about the agreement that we've been working toward, and the mayor just wanted me to quickly summarize for everybody else kind of where we're at, but the city is announcing today that we're going to move forward with working with the local development group on what's known as the Newberry's building on the public square. As the council knows, you all opened that up for public proposals a couple months ago. We received a number of different proposals from folks. What we would like to do now is move ahead to work with this local development group. We're proposing that we enter into a memorandum of understanding with them that would give both parties 120 days to kind of do their due diligence period. That is to finalize building plans, make sure they're in conformance with our downtown historic standards, because this property is in the historic district. It's on the square. Also work to finalize financing arrangements. That is potential for state and federal tax credits on the property if we pursue that. But it's a partnership between the local development group. They're known as the Elizabethtown Renaissance Associates. It's a group of local businesses, and I think from the discussions that we've had, I think the city's very pleased that we're going to be working with some local investors who looking at this building, and as the council has discussed, we all feel this is a very critical building for the future development of the downtown. So like I said, we're happy that with everything and ready to move ahead. And for those in the media, we do have a one-page sheet that we'll give to you all that has a little more information on it and stuff. So.
That's a good thing.
Good.
Thank you, Ed.
Long time coming.
Any other comments?
One quick thing, last Thursday, I had the honor to be in Frankfurt when the governor signed the city classification bill. And it was mentioned up there that the city of E-Town started that process and getting the General Assembly to change that. It took several years, but the governor signed it into law.
Actually, I'd like to take a lot of credit for that, along with.
Just because you sued the city.
Along with Rudy Mays.
Now, boys, calm down.
Calm
Calm down, boys.
Well, let me announce Rudy Mays, who's passed, longtime friend, and Steve Atcher and Matt Wyatt and myself and Alan Lastly. We were a part of that process and went up by the invitation of Jimmy Lee to address the Senate subcommittee on that issue. So we're glad it's finally been pushed through and it's been settled.
Appreciate your work with crafting the language of it. Done. We're set.
Anything else?
Adjourned.
Yes, sir.
And Mayor, we didn't give enough attention. Friday at 4:30 is an historic day for E-Town. The sale of that's probably the biggest thing that's occurred in E-Town since, I don't know what, but
alcohol.
Don't. Yeah, it's 4:30. Fireworks are gonna go off and
Everybody's gonna be trick or treat.
oh, that's right. That's an historic day.
Oh, did we decide when it's gonna be?
No, we're not getting into that.
We ain't going there.
Anytime
No.
they want a trick or treat's fine with me.
That's right.
Anything else? Good night. Thank you all.
Good night.
Thank you, Matt.
Oh, I know.
Very nice.
Okay.
No
problem.
That's why you're
Thank
school.
you.
That's why you're school.
I will tell you. I think we're gonna be.